Who is the best coach in the SEC right now? Football coach. And where does Josh Heupel rank on that list? It might be higher than you think. That and more coming up here on your Thursday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, and I'm your host, Eric Kane, @_Kaner, and Locked On Vols on Twitter. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me today and making Locked On Vols your first listen and watching on YouTube, liking this video, and subscribing to the YouTube channel. I got a fun show coming up. We're going to talk Josh Heupel, kind of where does he rank in terms of college football coaches in the SEC. It's going to be a whole lot of movement for Josh Heupel coming off what was an 11-2 season in all these off-season lists and the SEC college coaches, Power 5, top head coaches, all that and more. So gonna start peering into that. This is a list from Greg McElroy on his show, Always College Football, and I'm going to kind of break down where he has Josh Heupel. In segment 2, Isaac Shade of Locked On College Basketball, we have a conversation about Tennessee's basketball and, of course, the devastating loss of Zakai Zeigler, who tore his ACL. We talked about it on yesterday's show. Official word from the University of Tennessee came out on Wednesday, and he is done for the season, and we knew that was going to be the case. It was the same type of injury. It's a non-contact. It's ACL. Yeah, I've seen it too many times, and, thoughts and prayers to him, obviously. But Isaac and I kind of have a conversation about what's this mean for Tennessee? Who's going to run the point? What does it mean for Tennessee now at tournament time? And so we have an honest conversation about that. And then in segment number 3, the NFL Combine is getting ready to go on. The field work starts today. And, of course, we've already seen some media interviews and some stuff like that. But who's at the NFL Combine from Tennessee? Who has the most to gain? That is coming up in segment 3. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. Greg McElroy, former Alabama quarterback. Of course, he does morning radio with Cole Kubelik on Jocks down in Birmingham. And he does his he's getting big time now in terms of ESPN. He's an ESPN personality, and he has a show called Always College Football. And they do it a couple of times. A week. I think 3 days a week in the off season. But during football season, it's 5 days a week. This thing's going to take over. We know about YouTube. That's why we always stress it. This is going to be his main job, and I think he'll only do radio if he wants to, because I think this is going to blow up. But nonetheless, on his show, it was a couple of days ago, he ranked the top 5 SEC coaches. Okay, and I'm sure you'll know who the top 2 are, and Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. But what about 3, 4, 5? And is Josh Heupel in this top 5? Well, yes, Josh Heupel is in this top 5, coming off an 11-2 season, and he is at number 5. All right, so Josh Heupel, overall record 18-8, SEC record 10-6, and this is the quotable thing. It's a video, so they didn't transcribe everything that he said, but this is one of the quotes that Greg McElroy had on Josh Heupel, why he's ranking him at number 5. It says, like Lane Kiffin, it's one thing to break through, it's another to sustain. But I am cautiously optimistic that he's going to be able to sustain this upcoming season. If you look at what Tennessee brings back, they should be in the mix. Not saying to win the SEC East, but they should be, at worst, number 2 in the SEC East. Think about that. And I think I would buy, if we're talking about buy or sell that stock, I think I would buy that. Florida, I do not think is going to be good enough this year to be at number 2 in the SEC. South Carolina, I do not think will be good enough over the course of 12 regular season games to be good enough to be number 2 in the SEC. Kentucky, potentially. I think Kentucky would be the biggest. Competitor in that regard. Missouri, no. Vanderbilt, no. Yeah, I mean, I like where Tennessee is as well. Now, you lost an awful lot. Don't get me wrong, but you also bring back a lot, and you have adequate players to step in and fill that roles. Now, is Joe Milton going to be Hendon Hooker? No, he's not. But Joe Milton also is a 6-year college quarterback who started in 2 Power 5 programs, right? It's not like he's a new kid on the block. He kind of knows what he's doing. So I would buy that. I think at worst, Tennessee would be number 2 in the SEC East. But that's kind of what he has to say about Josh Heupel. Who's number 4, according to Greg McElroy? Well, he's got Lane Kiffin of Ole Miss. Overall record 23-13. SEC record 14-11. Quote on Ole Miss, or a quote on Lane Kiffin: "Look at what Ole Miss lost off its 2021 team. The fact that they were even ranked where they were at any point last year is a testament to what Lane Kiffin was able to replenish." So you go Lane Kiffin here. Who's at number 3? Brian Kelly of LSU. And since we know about Brian Kelly number 3, and we know who the top two coaches are on this list, I mean, look at some of those coaches that were left off. Jimbo Fisher, who I think is the most overrated coach in college football, right? You got Sam Pittman, which is about fair. Hugh Freeze, of course, he's now just back in the SEC, so it wouldn't be fair to put him in there. Clark Lee's not going to be up there. Eli Drinkwitz is not going to be up there. Billy Napier's left off this list, which deservedly so. I mean, he was not very good in year number 1. Shane Beamer's left off this list, and everybody seems to love Shane Beamer, but he's left off this list. Mark Stoops is left off this list. Every other coach but 5 were left off this list, but I found this kind of interesting. Went with Brian Kelly at 3. The quote on Brian Kelly: overall record at LSU 10-4, SEC record of 6-2, and of course they appeared in the SEC championship game this past season and year number 1 for him. Quote: "To see how much that team improved throughout the course of the season was remarkable. He had 2 freshman tackles. He had a defender, arguably his best defender, as a true freshman. He had a receiver that was a headache the entire season. He had so many different challenges that he had to overcome this year, yet the team continued to improve." That's right. Remember when LSU played FSU in the week 0 kickoff or whatever, and there was fighting in the locker room, and Brian Kelly is calling out a reporter. And you guys know me, I'm not a Brian Kelly fan. I think he's a scumbag of a human being, but he's a really good football coach. He is. That team did nothing but improve the whole season. I could not agree more. They got a pretty good quarterback as well. Number 2, he has Kirby Smart at number 2, and I think it's all about what you value right now. Now, overall, top to bottom, who's the better coach? Who's the more impressive coach? Well, it's Nick Saban, of course, right? I mean, 7 national championships, 189-27 record at Alabama. And the SEC, God, this SEC record's incredible. 109-18 record in the Southeastern Conference while being the head coach at Alabama. Just remarkable, right? It's incredible. But if you're saying, if you want to spin it and make it your own, who's the best coach in the SEC right now? It's Kirby Smart, 100%. It has got to be Kirby Smart, because remember, being a head football coach, it's much more than just coaching nowadays. It's general managing. It's managing your roster. It's selling your program. It's doing this. It's doing that. Very little. Like, would I want Kirby Smart or Nick Saban to instruct me on the football field right now? Well, I would take Nick Saban. Nick Saban's the one that taught Kirby Smart, right? He comes from that Nick Saban tree. I think as far as an instructor of the game of football, Nick Saban's still your guy. And by me saying Kirby is better than Saban right now, I am not saying I think Saban has lost it. I am not saying I think Nick Saban is bad. You can still win double-digit games and still fall behind Kirby Smart in Georgia, which is kind of where you've been the last 2 years. But how in the world could you win back-to-back national championships and not pick that head coach as the number 1 coach in the SEC right now? Just not fair, right? So he says on Kirby Smart's, this is a closer margin with Saban than probably ever before. That margin used to be significant. It was Nick Saban than everybody else. I think Kirby Smart has now joined the fray at the top of the college football world. I would think back-to-back national championships. He doesn't take a backseat to anybody else not named the GOAT Nick Saban, all right? And this is what he had to say about Nick Saban. I, for one, am still going to have Nick Saban at number 1. Not because I think he's necessarily better, but it's hard to ignore the 7 national championships, consistently getting his team to play at a pretty high level. He still has his team within striking distance every single year and has since 2008. Yeah, that's all true. I said on the radio program the other morning, it was a hot take, but I said Alabama with Nick Saban would not win another national championship. Because, again, he's not going to coach forever. Me and my co-host Logan Ward that morning, we were discussing kind of how much time Saban has left before he wants to retire. He's about to be 73, I think, and he's under contract until he's 79 or something like that. Maybe he's 70, and maybe he's 70 now, and he's under contract until he's 79, something like that. But anyway, we both kind of agreed that we think that he's going to coach about 3 or 4 more seasons. And I don't think he'll win another national championship just because there's so many good programs right now. That does not mean that I think Alabama's going to be 7-5. I think Alabama's going to be pushing to win 10, 11 games every single year, going to Atlanta and all that. But I just think Georgia where it is right now, and when Tennessee's coming, and you got some other challengers out there in the Southeastern Conference. I don't know if Nick Saban will ever win a national championship again. Again, that does not say that he's done. That does not mean that he's a bad football coach. I'm just saying where Kirby Smart has elevated Georgia and where Tennessee's coming, and some other teams, I just think it's going to be a little bit more difficult now. So anyway, it's all about kind of what you value. And for Greg McElroy, he values the total resume with Nick Saban more right now than back-to-back national titles for Kirby Smart. But the fact that he has Josh Heupel in his top 5, I think that says an awful lot. But he's right about one thing. Kiffin sustained. The challenge for Josh Heupel in 2023 is going to be sustainability. Can you sustain yourself as a team that is knocking on 10 wins every single season? Can you sustain the good quarterback play? So far, you've sustained being one of the best offenses in the country in his first 2 seasons. Now, new quarterback. Can you sustain stuff like that? We will find out. That's going to be a very big question. As coaches in the SEC right now, Josh Heupel is at number 5. I thought that was really, really interesting and really, really cool. Hey, when we come back, we'll touch base on Zakai Zeigler's injury. We'll talk Tennessee basketball. That is with Isaac Shade of Locked On College Basketball coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. But hey guys, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the midway point in the NBA season. Now's the perfect time to download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's America's #1 sportsbook because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and it is super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to the point scores, even to three-pointers that are drained. All right, you got player props, player points, rebounds, assists. You can talk about the spread, the money line, the total, and so many exclusive bets, like 2-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes. They've got all that really cool stuff at FanDuel Sportsbook regarding the NBA. Plus, FanDuel Sportsbook, it lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we got a little Locked On crossover edition here. Eric Kane, Locked On Vols. Isaac Shade here of Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Tar Heels. Some big basketball news, of course, for Tennessee, the Volunteers. Losing point guard Zakai Zeigler. You knew it as soon as you saw the play. It was non-contact. He goes down. We've seen it so many times. Tennessee fans, unfortunately, get this, Isaac. Next to last football game of the regular season, Hendon Hooker tears his ACL. Next to last basketball game of the regular season, Zakai Zeigler tears his ACL. Both of which were non-contact. Both of which wear jersey number 5. I mean, it's like,
yeah.
What the heck? It's awful, man. But, yeah, Tennessee lost a big one. And I got to be honest with you, I don't try to sugarcoat things. This is not good news for Tennessee whatsoever.
It is not. In fact, we were texting about this earlier today, and I believe the phrase you used with me is Tennessee is toast at this point. Hey, thankfully they weren't toast in the game. I mean, obviously this injury happened in the first couple minutes there at home against Arkansas, and then they pull out a 75-57 victory over, an Arkansas team that's still trying to kind of figure things out and who are we going to be with Nick Smith Jr. working back in. So, Eric, how did that happen? Because I feel like most teams, devastating injury. Everyone knows it, like you said.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams implode at that point, especially when it's early game scenario. So how did Rick Barnes rally this team and get them to blast their way to an 18-point victory?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Rick Barnes did his part and everything, but I'm going to give credit. To those players. You had Jemai Meshack and I believe it was Jonas Adu. Those two guys met with here locally in Knoxville. They do this big orange tip-off club every Wednesday when a couple of players come and speak to an audience, and they both just kind of said, "Hey, that's our brother, that's our teammate. We wanted to number one win this game for the seniors, but when he went down, not even 3 minutes into the game, we wanted to win this game for him. We wanted to pick him up, and we just played hard, and we weren't going to let ourselves be emotionally affected at the time, and we were just going to go out there and play because obviously it was a big time game that Tennessee needed to win as well." So I'm going to give a whole lot of credit to that team. Those guys, because it'd be so easy just to turn around and say, well, there it is. Not only for this game but for the season, and they did not do that. So a gutsy performance from a number of guys, and Jemai Meshack included, Santiago Vescovi, and Josiah Jordan-James, a couple of different guys scored in double figures. And
Yeah.
this Arkansas team, as you very well know, it's different than it was 2-3 weeks ago. I mean, they're one of the most dangerous teams, entering postseason play in the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament. For Tennessee to respond that way for a 9 o'clock tip in front of still a good crowd on senior night, hats off to that team for not backing down.
Absolutely. And I loved Olivia Kamwa's performance as well. I mean, just great stuff there. And at this point, the Vols are a 3 seed, at least in Joe Lunardi's bracketology. And I know the selection committee takes into account injuries and things like that, but I mean, there will be the regular season ending game at Auburn Saturday, and then whatever results come out of the SEC tournament. But I mean, I don't really see them sliding down off of that, maybe to 4, but I mean, as they showed on Tuesday night, they can certainly still win. So that said, where does Rick Barnes turn? Is it Josiah Jordan-James? Is it Julian Phillips is back now? Like, how does he plug the massive hole left by Zakai Zeigler?
Yeah, to your first point about the seeding line and everything, I mean, I don't see Tennessee falling much. Even, of course, you don't want to lose against Auburn. By the way, that's a house of horrors for Tennessee. It's tough for Tennessee to win there against Auburn here lately. But especially with the SEC tournament, Tennessee clicking right at the right time last year and playing its best basketball and winning that tournament, and then they didn't move.
Should have been a 2 seed.
Yeah,
should have been a 2 seed.
Exactly. I mean, no one takes into account at least the SEC tournament, right? So, we'll see. But that's a great question, man. Tennessee has one other true point guard on the roster, and that's B.J. Edwards, and he has not played an awful lot this year. Surprisingly, he's kind of played a little bit more of late, while Tennessee's really been kind of sliding in the month of February. Not a whole lot of minutes, but getting some. He didn't see any against Arkansas that were meaningful, and that was kind of surprising. But I just don't know if he's mature enough, as a basketball player. He's just a true freshman, and that's okay. He can grow into it, but I just don't know if he's ready to kind of take on that role. Tennessee has 3 guys, really 2 guys who have experience playing point guard in the SEC. That is Santiago Vescovi, who played it his first 2 years, and then that is Josiah Jordan-James, who, if you think all the way back 4 years ago, he came in as a point guard. Those guys can kind of do it by committee a little bit. You saw Jemiah Mashack, who is not a point guard, but he's playing because of his defensive prowess and everything else he gives Tennessee here lately, and he's been phenomenal. But it almost, like, if he can handle the ball, which I don't think he's a great ball handler, I don't think that it's going to be him exclusively doing the point guard, but that kind of takes him out of the offensive flow a little bit in terms of trying to create a shot, because that's just not his game. But it's going to be amongst those 3 guys, Santiago Vescovi and Jemiah Mashack and Josiah Jordan-James. You also have Tyreek Key, who is going to come back and play against Auburn. He's a guy that can, handle the ball. So, handling the ball and everything, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But the issue here, Isaac, is, Tennessee struggles to create shots, right, on the offensive end. And Zakai could, and now he's not playing. Yeah. He's an emotional tone setter. He's one of the few that can create their own shots. He is a Defensive Player of the Year semifinalist. I mean, this is a huge loss for Tennessee. It's going to hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, a guy that's under 6 foot, but yet he makes such a massive impact, much more so than his height. To that point, I kind of like the Josiah Jordan-James thought of it because of the difference in height, and it's just like teams are not expecting that, and if he could do it, I mean, it just brings a completely different dynamic to what this team could do. And wouldn't that be wild if all of a sudden something like that happened and then it just unlocks the offense? I don't expect that to happen, but I mean, as you said, as Andy Patton, my co-host, and I on Locked on College Basketball have talked about all season, like, that's been the bugaboo. This Tennessee defense ain't going anywhere, man. It's so insane.
Yeah.
But just the lack of consistency offensively makes it difficult to trust what the Vols can do, to make it to Houston, to win 4 in a row or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, that is absolutely the biggest question here is, what do they do offensively? I love your thought on it essentially being point guard by committee. And if they can put that together and do some different things that other teams are going to have to account for in their scouting report, it could actually be something that is a quirk that people are going to know how to deal with.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how they play against Auburn. And again, credit Tennessee, credit that staff. I mean, they did not fall back. In fact, they took it to Arkansas, and they beat the tar out of them the other night. And credit to them. But, teams will start seeing tape and kind of start scouting Tennessee without Zakai Zeigler. And it's not going to be like that every single game. I mean, it's easy. You have some people saying, well, Tennessee looks better offensively without Zakai. I mean, that is not going to be the norm whatsoever, in my opinion. Now, Tennessee's going to play hard. They're going to try. It's just, they had their shortcomings on offense as they have all season long. And now you take out the tone setter who has 5 double-doubles this season, points to assist. It's a Tennessee record, by the way, in a single season, and it's done by, Zakai Zeigler. So we'll see exactly what happens. Now, you and I were texting, and I did say Tennessee's toast. And, that's probably what a lot of Tennessee fans are feeling like right now, because it's just been such an annoyance in terms of the inconsistency, because Tennessee is good enough to beat anybody. And they have. They're quad 1 record and, wins over top 10 teams. They've beaten some of the best this year. And then they've lost some games where it's just inexcusable, right?
Colorado,
it's just,
right at the top. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that inconsistency that's just really been troubling for this team. It's been annoying for this team. I will say this, though. Earlier, last year, heading into the conference tournament, during the conference tournament, Tennessee was playing its absolute best. Played well in the opening round, then couldn't find the bottom of the net in the second round and got bounced.
That's right.
So who's to say, what the team looks like heading into postseason play, because you just never know.
Yeah. Well, we will certainly find out very soon, and I'm excited to see, and hopefully Zakai can get on the bench, be something of a player coach. I think he could add a lot in that way just because of his ability to see the floor. But, man, thoughts and prayers go out to Zakai, the whole Tennessee community, and obviously his family as well.
Boys and girls, we got a final segment left of this Thursday Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane. Talked a little hoops back in segment 2. We talked SEC coaches, where Josh Heupel ranks according to Greg McElroy. That was in segment 1. Now let's move on. Let's talk about former Vols now, but heading off to the NFL Combine this weekend. Chance to go make some money, and that's what some former Tennessee players are going to try to do. All right, so the NFL Combine, it is in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. You guys can watch it on the NFL Network all weekend long. Tennessee has 7 participants going to the NFL Combine, invited to the NFL Combine. It is quarterback Hendon Hooker, who, of course, is still nursing an ACL tear, which will knock him out of pretty much everything but meetings. Wide receivers Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, offensive tackle Darnell Wright, defensive lineman Byron Young, a linebacker Jeremy Banks, and punter Paxton Brooks. Not trying to be a hater, but I remember when he got invited, I am so surprised that Paxton Brooks was invited to the NFL Combine, because his statistics have progressively gotten worse every single year he's been at Tennessee, and they were just flat out awful this year. But good for him. Hopefully he turns it around, and hopefully he makes a roster. The specialist, sometimes it's one little tweak and you're a new man, right? So hopefully that's the case for him. But he'll be there and he'll be competing. In terms of on-the-field work, the defensive linemen and linebackers are going to go on Thursday. The defensive backs and specialists are going to go on Friday, and both of those days, the coverage on the NFL Network, if you want to watch, it starts at 3 o'clock. Saturday is when the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends will go. And Sunday is when the offensive linemen and running backs will go, and that'll be 1 o'clock coverage time on the NFL Network, so you guys can watch these players for Tennessee. So earlier in the week, kind of like on Monday through today, there's been registration, pre-exams, orientation for the NFL Combine, starting with team interviews, general medical examination. Again, everything is so nitpicky at the NFL Combine and throughout this draft process. It's just so funny every single year. I understand their jobs depend on it and everything, but NFL teams are so picky about every little thing that I just think is so damn stupid a lot of the times, right? But a lot of that is found right here at the NFL Combine with those general medical examinations and all that. So you then kind of transition from that earlier in the week, and then you're moving towards media interviews, the NFLPA meeting. You have your measurables to where you get your exact height, your exact weight, your exact wingspan, your exact, wait for it, hand size. That's a big topic at the NFL Combine. Kenny Pickett had the smallest hands, It's just so funny. And then, of course, you go to the on-the-field work. As I mentioned, the schedule's there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for their respective positions. And the on-the-field work, you're going to see how many times you can bench press 225 pounds. Then you'll run your 40-yard dash, which is so critical So critical for the skill players. You do your 10-second splits, you do your vertical jump, you do a broad jump, a three-cone drill, and a 20-yard shuttle. That's kind of the on-the-field work. Then you do some positional stuff, depending on what position you are. Quarterbacks will throw if they decide to. Running backs will take handoffs. I think it's the silliest thing for running backs to be there. Of course, they'll catch some passes out of the backfield. Receivers and tight ends will catch passes. Pass rushers will go around a dummy and then act like they're going to sack a quarterback. It's just a bunch of stuff there, right? And, for Hendon Hooker, he'll kind of treat this just like he did the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Go down, talk, meet, learn, try to impress these coaches with his smarts, with his wit, all that type of stuff. But this is a massive, massive week for the wide receivers. Jalen Hyatt, in my opinion, is going to be all the talk of the NFL Combine. I think he is going to run. What day are receivers going Saturday? I think he is going to run a low 4.3, okay? And I think that he is going to just be all the buzz and the talk of the NFL Combine. On the flip side, Cedric Tillman, big day for him big week for him because last time we saw him, he opted out last time we were going to see him, he opted out of the Senior Bowl to try to get as healthy as he possibly could, or he turned down an invitation to the Senior Bowl to get as healthy as he possibly could to try to perform well at this Combine. He opted out of the bowl game. He missed 6 regular season games for Tennessee, nursing an ankle injury all year long, and he is not the fastest guy whatsoever to begin with. So I'm intrigued to see what Cedric Tillman looks like at the NFL Combine. If it's not Jalen Hyatt that's got all the buzz for Tennessee, I think it is going to be Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright's so impressive, only 21 years old, started 40-plus games in the Southeastern Conference at offensive tackle. He's a big guy, 6'6", over 330 pounds, but he is super athletic. He is super quick, and doing those drills, those bag drills and all that type of stuff on the field in front of NFL scouts and personnel and head coaches and assistant coaches and all that type of stuff, I think he is just going to wow. I do. So big weeks, I'm presuming, for Jalen Hyatt and Darnell Wright. Byron Young as well. We'll see what he can do. Earlier in the offseason, Mel Kiper Jr. mocked him as number 20th overall. Don't think he'll be a first-round pick, but at least he's been mentioned in that light. Big week for him in terms of showing what he can do, where he can play. He's a tweener, right? Leo at the University of Tennessee, he'll be an outside linebacker who stands up, a defensive end who sits down. It'll be big for him to kind of show what he can do. And then maybe the Vol with the most to gain this week would be Jeremy Banks, linebacker. All right. I think he has the most to gain because he is such a bull in the china shop on the field, right? So he needs to prove that he can be controlled violence out there. But there's so many questions surrounding his character. There always has been, dating back to all of his incidences that got him kicked off the football team in the first place, and everything that revolved around him missing some games this year. He will get asked, and he already has been asked. He kind of danced around it. I saw that video clip from the NFL Combine a couple of days ago. He will be asked, hey, why did you miss the South Carolina game? Hey, this was said about you. Is this true? He can't be provoked. He's got to keep his cool. He's got to be mature in answering the questions. I pray that someone is coaching him up in that regard. But it's going to be a big week for him because how do you handle all that? How do you handle the interview process and all that? So, we will see. I'm expecting big things from Jalen Hyatt. I am expecting big things from Darnell Wright. But there are going to be 7 volunteers there going through drills, going through meetings, getting measurables and all that, and you can catch all that on the NFL Network. So you have this, and then on March the 30th, you will have the Pro Day for the University of Tennessee. That Pro Day will be on campus, so we're moving right along this draft process. Then after that, we will just be a couple weeks away from the NFL Draft, so looking forward to that. Good luck to Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Darnell Wright, Byron Young, Jeremy Banks, and Paxton Brooks at the NFL Scouting Combine. That is going to do it for this edition of Locked On Vols. @_Caner on Twitter, @LockedOnVols. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in, hanging out with us today, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same place. This is Locked On Vols.